I'm Phil Reese, and report to Ruth in research computing, and I have been here for a while, and we've worked hard to identify and understand that there was a need for centralization of research computing. Stanford, of course, is very decentral, and that has worked well and continues to work well, but servers in closets just doesn't work well. So having a place that's purpose-built for that is what we put together. And I hit the wrong button. So this is what the inside of what the data center looks like. It's pretty modern, space age looking, and it is in many different ways. It's a building that's on the SLAC campus. It's a Stanford building on the SLAC campus. There's a lot of history of why that's the case. I'll hit the three top points. One is that we wanted to have a building that would be more compatible between campus workers and SLAC workers, researchers working together. So by having it proximal to both camps, it made it easier for people to begin to work together. We also, all of you that have been here for a while, understand the need to have main campus for academic needs, the whole GUP issue. This being off campus avoids that, so we didn't have to pay that tax. And the third thing is that because it is on the SLAC campus, we have some very attractive pricing for power. So we have gone through a whole process to work with the Department of Energy to get the approval to use the power that they're using at SLAC. The power that we use, even when it's full, is so small compared to what the whole SLAC power use is that it was a nice match. And at the moment, campus power is a little bit inflated, but the power that we're paying at SLAC is half the cost of campus power. So everything that we can put in here just is half the cost on campus. The other thing that goes along with that is that besides the servers drawing power, there's the need to cool the servers and to handle all that. And that all costs power as well. And so, and it's not very efficient power. So basically, for every watt that a server uses on campus, there's another watt needed for the cooling. And so that's like 2 watts. And out here, for every watt the server uses, there's only about 0.3 watts needed for the cooling. So not only do we get cheaper power, we have more efficient spaces. Because it's on the SLAC property, and VJoy can respond to this, it's a very safe location in the sense that you have to go through a lot of hoops to even get in the door. There's a badging process that you have to go through to get access to the building. Visitors can visit. There's a process for doing the visitors, but you have to stop at a badge office and get a temporary badge. But the point of it is that the people that need to go there can get there relatively easily. There's a little bit of a bump at the first, but after that, it's quite easy to get there. From my office desk to being at the building, it's 10 minutes, and you can't really go across campus today in 10 minutes with all the work that's going on. So it's easy to get there. It's safe. We have a lot of cameras. We're going to be able to handle PHI data and HIPAA data there, and part of that work to allow that data to be stored there is we have a lot of cameras, and they're being recorded, and they're not to watch people to screw up. They're to go back in time. If an incident happens, we can see what actually happened during that time. The floor, the data center floor, has spaces for 185 racks. We've been open for just over a year, and we have about 50 of those racks in place, and so we have a lot of room for growth. And we have a lot of partnerships. And so the School of Medicine is a big partner. The SLAC themselves are a partner. And then the campus, including H&S, is the third partner. We initially had a hosting fee. And the little bit of a story there is that the provost, in the many conversations that we had about this, the provost and the president said, and especially the president, I know these faculty, they're just going to put junk out there and they're going to leave it there forever, and there's going to be no motivation to get them to move it on. And so they thought that if we had a little hosting fee that the researcher had to pay every year, that would encourage them to move the gear on after a period of time. It probably would, but it was also a pretty big deterrent to getting people to move in there in the first place. So right now the hosting fee is waived, and we don't see that coming back. What we do see is having a policy that equipment can only be 5 years or can only be up to 5 years old, and we strongly ask you to move it out. And we have ways to encourage that as well. Another thing that we, with H&S's help, is that while the hosting is fee, you see there's some racks, but there's many other areas where there aren't racks. So the building is basically rackless. So you have to bring your own rack. So if you want to move up there, you'd have to buy a rack. You'd have to buy what's called a power distribution unit, a PDU, for basically a fancy power strip that's a little bit more expensive than a typical power strip. And then you'd also have to buy a switch that goes on the top of the rack to connect to the network. So that's some expense, on the order of $3,000. It's not huge, but it's a deterrent. And so the H&S has seeded a few racks for researchers that want to get started. So if you only have a few servers or a half a rack or even a full rack, we can get you going pretty quickly and inexpensively. One of the things that we knew we needed to have up there is we had to have great networking, and we worked with SLAC on this. And SLAC, for the 40 years that they have been a national lab, they've only had one pathway for their fiber to get to their campus. So they were at risk for the backhoe incident along Sand Hill Road. And so with the decision to put the facility there, we were able to have an alternative path brought over the Alpine Road and the golf course to bring redundant fiber to the building, and it also brought redundant fiber to SLAC. So everybody benefited out of that. And we have 144 strands going in each direction. Each strand can currently handle, several hundred gigabit each. And so no problem with capacity. We bought very high-end routers and switches currently. And this is the first facility that will get the 100 gig that has recently come to campus. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. So there's no problem with networking. In fact, I don't know if you have any comments, Vijay, but I don't think you've noticed any difference between the time it takes to get to your server from campus versus up there or not.
It seems fast.
Yeah, good. That's what I want to hear. It is, and we work hard with any researcher that has trouble if that becomes an issue. Here's a blow-up of the whole network, as you can see, and this is really actually tamed down a little bit. It's a pretty complicated backbone network that is deployed across campus, and we're a part of that. We're out of the data center area here. We get connection here, and not shown here is we have very good connectivity to the outside edge of the network, and that's where the 100 gig will come in, more up in this area. So that's a really important thing for us to have, is that 100 gig. We also have Mark Piercy, the H&S person, is starting in a week, and we have a few other people on staff, Jiang, can help you figure out why things are going slow. So if you're working on a project and you're working on campus and, gee, this is going slow, or I'm having trouble with understanding how to convert this to work on Sherlock or work on a cluster, we have people that can help you with that as well. Ruth, I'm sure, will say more about that. Again, the bandwidth and the opportunity to get to more and broader parallel computing on campus as well as at the national labs. Again, Ruth will talk more about that.